This is chapter 2, and chapter 2 is all about multiplying and dividing rational numbers. So we're going to start with 2.1, which is multiplying integers. And integers we know as positive and whole numbers, or whole numbers that are positive and negative, and zero. So we're not going to deal with any fractions or decimals yet. Now, the key idea, this is the most important thing. When you're multiplying integers with the same sign, it will always turn out to be positive. So you can see when you have a positive times a positive, you get a positive. When you have a negative times a negative, you're going to get a positive. So the same sign equals positive. Now, if you have different signs, like you have a positive here and a negative, that's always going to be negative. Always. Negative times a positive, negative. All right, let's do some try-its here. You can see that the problems they have here, negative 5 times negative 6, we know that it's the same, so it's a negative times a negative. Whenever something is the same, it's going to be positive. So it's negative 5 times negative 6 is a positive 30. Now you have a different. You have a positive 3 times a negative 4. Anything that's different like that, it's always going to be negative. So let's look at number 1. 5 times 5, that gets me 25. Same sign, so it's always going to be positive. Number 2, negative 1 times negative 9. Negative times negative, always going to be positive. Number 3, 7 times negative 8. It's a negative times a negative, same sign, and so it's going to be positive. So now I just do 7 times 8 is 56. Number 4, 12 times negative 2. They're different signs, so it's going to be negative. 12 times 2 is 24. They're different signs, so we're at negative 24. Number 5, positive 4 times a negative 6. They're different signs, so it's going to be negative 24. And then 6 is negative 25 times 0. Now, it doesn't matter if it's anything times 0, if it's a negative or a positive. Anything times 0 is always 0. Okay? Now, we can evaluate expressions. And this is where we remember to do PEMDAS and how we have to, we do the parentheses first, then the exponents, then the multiplication, division, and then adding and subtracting. Okay? So, in this first one, find negative 2 to the second power. So negative 2 to the second power is just negative 2 times negative 2. Because it's a negative times a negative, it's going to be a positive 4. Now this one is a negative 2 squared. So the 2 is the thing that is squared. So you have the negative goes outside, and then you're squaring the 2, which is 2 times 2. That equals 4, and then negative times 4 is a negative 4. So that one is a negative 4. All right, C. You have a negative 2 times 17 times negative 5. So we got to go in order left to right. That's all multiplication. So we do negative 2 times 17. Those are going to be negative 34. And then negative 34 times a negative 5. Because it's a negative times a negative, it's going to be positive. And we get 170. Now, we can move things around because of the cumulative property of multiplication. As long as it's all multiplication, doesn't matter what you do first. So you could take the negative 2 times the negative 5. Negative times the negative is a positive, which is 10. And then 10 times 17, same sign, so it's positive. D. So you have to do the parentheses first. And when you do negative 3 plus 4, you're going to end up with a 1. So then you have a negative 6 times 1 plus 6. So you got to do the multiplication here. Negative 6 times 1. It's opposite. It's a different sign, so it's negative 6. Then you bring down the plus 6. Negative 6 plus 6 is nothing. 0. Okay. Now, let's do 7. And I'm going to show you how I like to do these. This one, times 0. So because I see this right here, and it's all multiplication, so 0 times anything is always 0. Now let's look at 8. 24 minus 3 to the third. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this part right here. 3 to the third is 3 times 3 times 3. And that equals 27. So now it's 24 minus 27. And we know that the absolute value of this one is bigger if we go plus negative. So it's 24 plus a negative 27. It's going to be a negative 3. And that is your answer. All right, let's do number 9. We have 10 minus 7 parentheses 3 minus 5. All right, so we do the parentheses first. 3 minus 5 is a negative 2. Now we're going to do the 7 times negative 2. 7 times negative 2 is a negative 14. So now we have a 10 minus a negative 14. And when I get to that, I want to add the opposite. So 10 plus 14 is 24. Okay. All right, let's do a little self-assessment. I would pause the video right here, and on page 51 in your book, I would do problems 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Do those, write them down, and then come back to see how you did. All right, number 10 says, what can you conclude about two integers whose product is A positive and B negative? Well, if you have a product that is positive, it's always going to be the same sign. You're going to have a negative times a negative or a positive times a positive. The same equals positive. Now, if it's negative, it's always going to be different. You're going to have a positive and a negative, or a negative and a positive. And you will always have a negative. All right, let's evaluate these expressions. Number 11 is a 4 times a negative 8, because that parentheses means multiplication. So 4 times negative 8, we know 4 times 8 is 32. It's a positive times a negative, so it's going to be a negative 32. 12. Negative 5 times negative 7. It's a negative times a negative, so that's a positive. And I know 5 times 7 is 35. 13. Okay, this is a little bit more complex. 12 minus 3 squared times negative 2. Okay. So we have to do the parentheses first, but there's nothing to do with negative 2. That's fine. Then we do the exponents. So we have 3 squared. So 12 minus 9 times negative 2. Now we do the multiplication. We have a 9 times a negative 2. So that's 12 minus 9 times negative 2. They're a positive plus or positive and a negative. So it's going to be a negative 18. Now I see I have subtraction, so I'm going to add the opposite. And when I put 12 with 18, I get 30 for an answer. Now let's just reason out number 14 and 15. The product of 3 positive integers is positive. And that's true, because you're going to have a positive times a positive times a positive. Now, whatever you do first, same. This one and this one first will get you a positive, and that's going to be positive. So it doesn't matter what you do first, it's positive, positive, positive. Same is always positive. So this is true. Now, 15. The product of 3 integers is positive. Of 3 negative integers. So if I have a negative, and a negative, and I'm multiplying those together, is it going to be positive? Well, this negative times a negative, 2 that are the same, that's a positive, and then times this negative, it's going to be a positive times a negative, always negative. If I would do these two together, those two negatives, they're going to be a positive times this negative, then it's a negative. So this one, 15, is false. Let's tackle this modeling real life. So this is a real life problem, a nice word problem. I read it over first, and I'll probably have to read it a couple times. You solve a number puzzle on your phone. You start with 250 points. You finish the puzzle in 8 minutes and 45 seconds and make 3 mistakes. What is your score? Okay, so we don't know what the score is. So that's going to be that. But the score is going to equal my starting points, which is 250. I finish it in 8 minutes and 45 seconds. Now, what does that mean? So, I get, this one says each mistake is negative 50, but each second under 10 minutes is 1 bonus point. Okay, under 10 minutes. So we have to take 10 minutes minus 8 minutes and 45 seconds. So how do I get from 8 minutes and 45 seconds up to 10 minutes? Well, that's 1 minute and 15 seconds. Let's put that in seconds. Well, 1 minute is 60. 60 plus 15 equals 75 seconds. Now let's read this again. Each second under 10 minutes, So that's 75 seconds under 10 minutes is a bonus point. So now we're going to add 75 points to our beginning score. But we do make 3 mistakes. So we're going to have to take away the mistakes. So it will be we're going to add to it our mistakes. And it's how many mistakes? 3 times, each mistake is a negative 50. So now we have a starting of 250, bonus of 75, and then we have mistakes, 3 times negative 50. We have to do the multiplication first, which is this. So 3 times negative 50 is a negative 150. Then I bring everything else down. 75, 250. Okay. Now I'm going to add the 250 plus the 75. When I do that, I get 325 plus a negative 150. So now I just have to take 325, take away my 150, 5, 2, that is 175. So my score now is 175. When I started at 250, I got some bonus points, but I also made 3 mistakes, and 3 times negative 50 is a lot. So 150. So when I put these two together, it's like the 75 bonus helped with the negative 150, and so I only lost 75 from my 250. So that was good. So 325 minus 150 equals 175. All right, the little self-assessment for problem solving. There's 2 problems here, number 16 and 17. I want you to try these 2 on your own and bring the answers to class tomorrow, and we will go through them. All right.